if we could hit one of these Trump things, that'd be good.
Oh. All right, nigga, what Trump shit you want to hit? Like, goddamn. All right,
nothing
Trump
specifically,
bad.
just whatever. What are we?
Trump bad. Everything the nigga
bad.
does is bad.
Trump's so bad.
Big bad.
Man, you want to know something crazy?
Trump. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right. How about this? Talk about Trump, but from a different angle. Found out, man. One of my cousins, Trump supporter, bro. He voted for Trump.
Jesus.
Yeah, but and it was, oh man, like it was.
What was the reasoning? And this is a black male cousin or female or?
Oh yeah, black male cousin.
Well, I didn't want to.
This nigga said, of course. This nigga said, absolutely. This is a black male cousin.
Because I went to like white for some reason. Like, I mean, yeah, I got.
Oh yeah,
but the reasoning behind it was because, for one, largely uninformed about like what's really going on, because you know how you get into like you like certain shit, and you get kind of funneled into like propaganda shit, or like
sure
they'll paint like certain pictures and tell you, oh, this is good. You remember when Trump gave these black people all this money back in the 90s? Trump good, shit like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and go easy. This is my cousin. You know what I'm saying? Go easy.
Yeah.
No. Like I'm more curious.
I'm gonna talk about my dad when you're done. So like,
and he was just like, man, like Trump just, and then he's like, Trump just became racist when he started running. I'm like, well, no, the motherfucker been racist, but he was like, you know, they just wanted, they trying to like bring up all this other shit, like, but Trump been looking out for black people. Trump been doing da. Like Trump being like partnering like rappers and like doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, well, those things did happen, but what about all this other shit? And I'm like, well, hey, you can go and actually Google like all the times he's been racist. Like, you know, you can see that for yourself.
Yeah.
But then he was also just like, I guess with the overall hope that Trump can do better than essentially a failing government. The government that's been failing us for the last 30, 40, or however long.
400 years.
Yeah,
that's a big ethos of this conversation, which I'm not like, I kind of get it.
Yeah. It's just difficult because while, yeah, he has that right. And that was all because he got into like, bro, it should be politics be dividing families.
Yeah.
But because he got into like an argument with like our uncle or some shit. That was just crazy. That conversation, like the uncle actually crossed the boundary. It was like, all right, well, look, like, you know, don't forget who you're talking to. Mm-hmm. And it was just a thing of, hey, I have the right to vote for who I want to vote for. Like, you know, we can keep it civil, we can have a debate, but like, you know, you start crossing lines, shit might go another place. So from that stance, I'm like, well, hey, you're right. You do have that right to vote for who you want to. It's just really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of sad that the reality and the dangers of Trump and Elon Musk, like this new government reform, a lot of people are so misinformed about, and actually have hope that these billionaires are going to give the money that they find from the government, that the government has been wasting,
spending
to us. Like, we're going to reap those benefits, when that's not the case at all.
No. Yeah. See, I think that there's, just before Alvin gets into his you know, similar kind of a story, I am kind of like, you do have the right to vote for who you want to, and if that's based on like a set of lies or kind of incomplete information, I'm a little bit more like, I'm quite sympathetic to that, especially because I've from day dot this whole everything. I'm not a Democrat. I've never been a Democrat. I've never said they're just the most left wing party that's the least on bullshit of the two terrible choices that we have.
You can Google what like people are like registered as, and like as I tell people all the time, I'm registered. No, I'm registered. Like I'm on here under my real name. Like I'm a registered independent, for example. Yeah. Like I'm a registered independent voter. So I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. And so part of that is I'm like, the Democratic Party, trash, garbage, been destroying Black lives since always as well. And I'm kind of like, they have not done a good job of bridging the gap to tell people why the fuck they should vote for them or why any of this shit matters. Like, even talking about like, oh, Trump is a threat to democracy, I think was also in hindsight just very amorphous. And it's like, what does that have to do with the cost of gas or eggs? Like, just, you're not rounding the circle here. You're talking very academically. But
yes,
on the other side of this sympathy, I think that it's a lot of folks who maybe are voting for Trump because they like the shit that we are saying is bullshit. I don't know what the percentages are there, but from what you told me of your cousin, I'm like, this is a place to have a conversation. Like, you have the right to make your decision. We have the right to admonish it. But I think in a situation like that, it's like, there's just an opportunity for education. Like, I don't think that what you think is going on is what's going on. If you're like, oh yeah, fuck women or whatever crazy shit, then it's like, yeah, you have the right to vote for who you want, and I have the right to not fuck with you and not invite you to family functions anymore. Like, we both have that right once it gets there.
So I would say, if you look at presidents over, I'd say, the last 100 years, the president that probably moved the needle most for black people especially, but like, all minorities stand on our shoulders, just being frank from a political perspective. So who moved the needle for all minorities was a vehement on the record racist, and that's Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson signed all the Civil Rights Act, all those kind of things, and he said he basically said, I'm going to lock in the vote. He was like, I don't like these motherfuckers. He's like, I'm going to lock in the vote. I don't like them. I wish I didn't have to do this. I'm going to secure that vote for the Democratic Party forever, is what Lyndon B. Johnson said. He was a vehement racist, and again, moved the needle for black people probably more than any other president of the last 100 years. Just partner. So
they really have bought our vote and just never goddamn re-upped on the subscription and just thought they was gonna keep getting it every 4 years. Like,
even presidents that black people historically liked, if you really dig into their policies, have other than Barack. Like, Barack is one of those ones where, like, if you really dig into it, a lot of the stuff that he was doing actually ultimately helped black people. But for example, William Jefferson Clinton, who is a brilliant politician, did a lot of stuff that was blatantly harmful to black people as a part of his platform, and black people still love Bill Clinton. But anyway,
because he could play that saxophone, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing trumps the nigga playing saxophone on Arsenio. But all that being said, it's murky, right? It's difficult for the average person to parse out. So to Eddie's point, which I can only echo at this point, there are a lot of people that are basing their political opinions based on misinformation or incomplete information. So like Josh was like, be kind to his cousin. I'll put my father out there. My father is a person who very much took some stances that would be considered very right wing until you talk to him, right? So to his credit, once he knows better, the nigga does better, right? So I remember having conversations early on with him in the COVID pandemic about him being just at the border of anti-vaccine, and I would be like, no, pops, here's some information, and he'd be like, all right, bet. And now it's at the point where he's asking me now, like, oh, did you get your COVID booster? I got mine. So he was very much on the fence of, well, Trump's a good businessman, and I'm like, he's really not a good businessman. He's really not. So a lot of it is that. But all that being said is, and the reason why I led with the story about Lyndon Johnson and all that kind of stuff, and how stuff kind of ebbs and flows, is when you look at stuff historically in regards to the parties, there's not too much difference pre-Trump, right? So if you look at, say, Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney, their platforms basically differed on like 6 key issues, right? Were those issues pretty big, like immigration reform and like healthcare and all that kind of stuff? They were fairly large issues, but like mostly they were the same fucking person. Him and John McCain, same situation, right? So a lot of it is, you basically have, and I've quoted this on this podcast multiple times, but Bob Woodward, probably the greatest political journalist of our day, did an expose / memoir on the Clinton administration, and he talks about when Clinton took office and he addressed the Congress for the first time in '93, and this is Iraq. It's like it's pandemonium. It's people getting ready to riot. It's people not getting ready to do anything, and he quiets the crowd, a Republican Congress, and he says, "You guys do realize that none of us are Democrats here." Like, none of us are Democrats. It's Reagan Republicans and it's Eisenhower Republicans, and that's basically what you get to. So when you have those situations, you can have a debate based on what they kind of think in terms of like the policy within a very limited spectrum. What I think Trump changes from that perspective is now you have people debating their personage, right? Like, it's not a situation where like I'm debating, whether or not we should spend XYZ on military funds, even though that has far range implications. It's not whether or not I believe in Keynesian economics from a social safety net perspective. It's literally people. Yeah, it's literally people are having conversations in the Trump era about their personage, right? Like whether or not they have the right to do what they want with their body, whether or not they have to do that, whether or not they have the right to exist as a person in this state, right? So from that perspective, I do think that I'm a bit more hardline with people supporting Trump than I would be, for example, with people supporting John McCain. Like right. I think that could be a difference of how you interpret a probabilistic science that is economics. Right? Okay. From a Trump perspective, it's like we're literally having fundamental disagreements on whether or not I, as a black person, somebody else as a woman, like our personage, our citizenship, our right to be here, our right to do that kind of stuff. So all that being said, from a Trump perspective, if somebody's like supporting him from a place that, to Eddie's point, that is not just specifically about misinformation or lack of knowledge and all that kind of stuff, I'm a bit more hard lines on how I approach those people.
See, that really squares a circle for me, the way that you put that, if I'm understanding what you said, because it's like, given the fact that this political cycle and a lot of not all of, and I feel like we really don't know fully what the full picture of all kinds of Trump supporters is, because we live in such a bubble, and I think that's a big blind spot here. But it's a lot of the conversation was, in my view, bogged down on identity politics, but that is where a lot of the victories happened, on the identity politics around race and gender and queerness and immigration and all that kind of shit, instead of actual policy shit that's going to change large swaths of the population's lives. And so a lot of the people who voted for Trump are like, yeah, no, I also hate trans people. That's cool. Great. I also hate immigrants. Cool. That's I'm voting for that identity politics thing. I kind of don't care what's going on with the economy, but that's a subsection. And I don't want that to be like, that's the whole thing.
When until they start taking these niggas snap. Go ahead, Josh.
So I got a
exactly.
I got a homeboy whose stepdad, Trump supporter, again, division of the family. And he was like, yeah, man. He's like real old school. And he was like, I remember the day, like, he like stopped fucking with Barack Obama, like when Obama like signed in, like, the
gay shit,
gay marriage, like made that and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He was like, oh hell no. So, like one of them,
which he didn't, by the way, but go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was like a Supreme Court thing. But he was in office when shit happened. So
Obama was pro LGBT.
Eventually,
like,
he wasn't pro marriage, but that's beside your point. Go ahead.
Yeah, but but it was just a thing that Obama.
With
the gay people, kind of like, he ain't
footnote shit. Yeah.
But it was just like on that shit. So when Trump, and of course I'm pretty sure with some also maybe like other like hateful policies too, but like the queer stuff, that queer agenda, man, bro, like I really underestimated like how much people were voting like based on just that alone, like you were saying, like kind of like in that bubble, like that was like a thing. Like, oh yeah, we got to make sure that gay people can't get married because this is fucking my life up somehow. Like you're willing, and this is just funny too, because I think he's also like a federal worker. So the man you voted for to, and part of the reason why, because like you don't do that
put
gay
you
shit.
Out of a job.
Put him out of a job, but his ass got to go back to the office. When they announced all federal workers got to return to the office, it was like their ass was back in there like a couple days later.
What'd he say?
Yeah, like what was his response?
What was his response to that? Because I feel like one of the things that's real interesting about Trump is it does seem like, at least in this first month, that a lot of that stuff feels very directly tied to him. And I wonder whether or not people feel that. It doesn't always feel that way in government. Something happens and you don't necessarily tie it to the president. But with Trump, it's like Trump did this to the federal workers. Trump built this thing. And
it's also like
gutted USAID.
It's also one of those things where he can actually do it, right? Like he can unilaterally say like, no, y'all motherfuckers got to get back to the office. Like there are other things where like he's saying that he's going to do it and various things have been stopped despite the fact that he still continues to say that he's doing it. No, but the motherfucker can make them all get back to the office. So that is his decision.
Yeah.
So what'd he say?
I don't know. I don't. Okay. I mean, I was just
I'm
hearing
very curious about that.
Yeah, I was just hearing the story through my friend, and I didn't even think to ask like, oh, what was his reaction? What did he say after that? But it's just funny because like I really underestimated how bigoted people are, like, to this day against, like, queer people.
The one thing I will note about it is that when you put gay marriage on the ballot, it typically loses. Gay marriage has lost as a proposition on the ballot in California, of all places, right? Now, that was a while ago, and I remember having a conversation with my sister, and she was like, put it on the ballot now, see what happens. And I was like, touche. But
Yeah.
even Barack Obama didn't necessarily support the recognition of gay marriage. He actually campaigned on a promise of the government recognizing civil unions to draw a stark like divide between recognizing gay marriage as an institution and just having some benefits that you could tie to civil unions,
Yeah.
like
That
having
isn't
power
the
of
same
attorney.
thing as
Yeah, this is not the
straight
same
marriage.
thing. That's because quiet is kept. Quiet is kept. Barack Obama is actually extremely religious. So like his Christian faith is something that he kind of downplays a little bit because he's also actually an intellectual. Like he's actually very intelligent. Barack Obama is probably one of the most like intellectually gifted presidents that we've ever had. That's not named William Jefferson Clinton, but all that to square the circle. I really love that piece, Eddie, is that gay marriage came about as a result of the court system, right? The court's interpretation of existing statute. Barack Obama didn't support it. Various states have not supported it. Even states that you would think would support it haven't. So it is, to Josh's point, there's a lot of evidence that actually supports that it's a lot more divisive than the zeitgeist would.
Yeah,
would
that a
have you
big
believe.
chunk of people, maybe even most, don't support gay marriage in the first place. I mean, yeah, because it was a court. I always found like the way gay marriage got passed. I remember thinking, oh, that's wild, because I thought it was going to happen like how weed does it. It's going to be this state by state, slowly, and then it was like, no, just at one point the Supreme Court decides this is like just a constitutional truth, and boom, all of a sudden it's legal, as if it should have been always. And I just thought that was the craziest. I'd never seen anything in my life like that, of such a landmark thing happening all at once. Yeah,
Griswold.
That's a good,
Griswold, Loving v. Virginia. You know what I mean? Like, but
gonna be, But again, I don't know when Roe was, but Loving v. Virginia was before my time, and but I thought Roe
was also before your time. Like
so
a lot of this shit that happened was the 70s.
Like a fundamental law. Just the whole nation, all of a sudden, gay people can get married. I was like, that's crazy that you can do it that way. That's great. Like, we just skipped all of this slow slog of tipping one, state every few years kind of shit. It's just, everywhere's chill. I don't know.
Yeah, man, phenomenal insights. I will say from my perspective, I think that Trump is going to do very, very real damage, which we already know he's going to do because he already did it. To the United States standing in terms of international affairs. I think that's going to be where we feel it. That climate change, we're going to feel that shit.
Oh, climate change is done. Yeah, that's
like climate change is the issue, not the issue, but the only saving grace is that the countries that are also equally as bad as the United States seem to be taking it seriously. Like China seems to be taking it seriously. India seems to be taking it seriously. Brazil. So I do think maybe we have time if we get this shit together as a country. But like our status in terms of how we bully people from an international perspective, which regardless of whether or not you agree with it, it benefits everyday Americans. I don't know how that's going to be, but that shit's crazy, man. Like that's already done.
And I don't think it's opposed to the goals of, because I'm very like, we got to stop talking about big ticket issues that the average person isn't really impacted, doesn't really give a fuck about. I think climate change to some extent is one of those in certain contexts, but I don't think that climate change is opposed for most of these things to the actual goals of a person who's just trying to like live and earn a living. So it's not this like, oh, if we attend to climate change, you're not gonna have a job. They're not opposed to one another, in my understanding.
Yeah, 100%. But even stuff like, let's say he continues with his agenda, I do think that you're going to have a lot of Republicans opposing him because the things that he continues to harp on are overwhelmingly fucking popular, right? So it's like how much can you push back on a senator saying, if I don't oppose you publicly, my people are going to fucking vote me out if you want to cut, say, Medicaid/Medicare, or if you want to cut SNAP benefits, right? So I'm very curious to see if he can continue to play bully ball with those red state senators and specific red representatives when we know for a fact that the things that he's saying are like popular amongst those base. And again, I don't know if that really looks like
those things, because because some of the conversations that we've had about this one, and sorry, I'll let you close, but some of the conversations we've had about this one really opened my eyes that it's like what you do is, as a right wing kind of pundit, is you say, we're going to cut benefits for the people who don't deserve it. And then you never cut it for your, like, for instance, let's say, I'm generalizing here, for your white voters. So you go, we're going to make sure these don't get, and by the way, make sure to cut all of these times that we're saying hard R, because the shit gets demonetized. So if you're saying that, but you're also making sure that your white constituents never actually lose their benefits, do you have good reason to believe that Trump is going to make some kind of unilateral big bully executive push that actually takes money out of the pockets of poor whites?
So the reason why I think that he's put himself in a sticky situation, very similar to what I mentioned previously in terms of his imperialist agenda, where he's basically shot himself in the foot by not funding U.S. aid, because that is a neo-imperialist agenda.
Yeah.
When you do away with federal DEI programs, you limit your capacity to specifically target those programs, and you have to make them broadly applicable. And if you make stuff broadly applicable in the context of the United States, that means you have to, like, include everybody from that perspective. And you can't say like white people only. There would
be hard to do that.
Yeah, there would, and again, to shooting themselves in the foot, there would have been a way to do that. Like if you hadn't done away with like DEI stuff with executive order and all that kind of stuff. But I think he's made it very difficult on himself to say, like, I want to curb this in a way that doesn't benefit X group, but it does benefit Y group, when you eliminate those kind of ways to funnel stuff to specific things.
Department. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. We shall see. I mean, I hope that does happen, because then that at least means that there's a way to depower him within the current system.
Yeah. If he doesn't go off the deep end, and we have a midterm election, which I'm putting that out there just as basically, bait. But I'm assuming we'll have a midterm election. I think it's going to go very poorly for him. I think it's going to go very, very poorly for him, because again, there are states that are already feeling the effects of what he's doing, and with these tariffs, the average consumer is only going to feel it more.
Oh yeah,
shit finna be expensive as shit.
It already is. Hell,
the unions are already mad with Trump in regards to how he's handling like those particular situations, and also from an American perspective, putting tariffs on, say, like steel, cuts the knees out of several industries, because the United States doesn't have enough capacity to produce the amount of steel we need. We have to import steel, for example. So people are going to feel these, and a lot. There's going to be, again, assuming we have midterm elections, which I'm fairly confident that we're going to have a huge coalition against a lot of these decisions.
Hope so.
Fingers crossed. God damn.
Yeah. And with that being said, let's say somebody's calling you by your government name, despite the fact that you've been going by a pseudonym for your entire career. You may be seeing a red flag. However,
I thought it was a good plan.
100%.
I'm still gonna try it.
Yeah.
However, if you've been imagining somebody kissing your significant other at a concert, and that puts you into a rage, you may be waving a red flag.
Zoom straight to the moon. All right.
Straight to the moon, Alice.
To the moon. It has been Waving the Red Flag podcast. It has been Edward Button Overgold. It has been Josh. It has been Alvin. Once again, make sure that if you want to be a part of the conversation, in addition to liking, subscribing, commenting, please pop in that chat. Make sure that you are taking advantage of our membership services, whether that be through YouTube or Patreon or both, to be a part of our growing Discord, where you can, again, interface not only with us, but again, as a part of our growing community. Again, we are a very small business. It does help us out tremendously. And again, it is something that you, as a viewer and as a purveyor of our content, should enjoy. So make sure that you keep that on the radar. I'd appreciate it.
Big facts.
Yeah,
like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You know what I mean? Come
100%
live.
Yeah,
fuck
all of it.
By this point, I'm already
twist
drunk.
It, pull it.
By this point, I'm already drunk. It gets a little bit fun if I, I leave this and I hop directly into the Discord. Who knows what happens?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he get wild in there. He get wild in that Discord.
You'll
he
never know what's
in that Discord.
Yeah. Sometimes I say, hey. Sometimes Josh jumps in and be like, "What's up?" Boom.
Yeah, sometimes I say something stupid. You know what I mean? Sometimes I give poor dating advice in that Discord. So,
or good dating advice.
Exactly. You never know.
The Lord giveth, and He taketh away.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. All right. Listen to this thing.
It's a red flag.